Hinamatsuri is among one of many upcoming anime series that I didn't expect an adaptation for. Really, there's just so many announced series that I didn't expect, mainly because I didn't think they were that popular, but I guess this is just how it is. But not all of the series are ones that I'm particularly looking forward to, but some are going to be really great, and this show is one of them. I am, of course, going into this already full well knowing the manga, as I have read a good portion of it, which is quite rare for me. But enough about that, let's talk about the show. It's currently being produced for the spring 2018 season by Feel, a studio that has things like Kiss X Sis and So I Can't Play H, but also Yahari Season 2 and Tsukigakure. So they've got all you can expect from a studio called Feel. All joking aside, they're actually a good studio. I like quite a bit of what they make. But going into this, I kind of had this weird feeling that JC staff might have been the perfect studio to pick this up, even though they are busy with Amanchu, We Cross, and Last Period, but either way, Feel is still doing a good job. Even if the source material is just outright amazing and hilarious on its own, it still takes a great studio to be able to translate that into visuals, and to get the timing and atmosphere and soundtrack captured just well enough to make it worth watching. But what exactly is Hinamatsuri?
クラスになった新田だ。仲良くな。じゃあ新田、みんなに自己紹介してくれ。
はここにはいないぞ。
驚きの発言が来た。
そうだった。私は新田だった。
The story is as strange and absurd as you'd expect from this anime. Hina, who's an alien from some planet, accidentally finds her way crash landing into Nita's apartment. Nita being a member of the Yakuza. And as any reasonable person, doesn't exactly want some strange alien kid barging into his place and calling it home. But he can't exactly kick Hina out either, in fear of being killed from Hina's very powerful psychic abilities. Thus, Nita reluctantly accepts her, and antics ensue as their new strange life begins. This is just the right premise for a gag comedy as you'd expect, but I actually think the best part of Hinamatsuri isn't even the jokes, and the whole absurdity of it all. Although yeah, these characters are as wacky and colorful and amusing to watch as you can get, and the jokes are really there and funny, but there's also something really quite special about these characters as a whole, and that's the heartwarming and meaningful aspects of the show. This is something you see often in comedy shows, or at least I feel like it's become something of a staple in these kinds of stories. For example, Daily Lives of High School Boys, for the most part, is non-stop gags and comedy routines for the sake of making us laugh. Sure enough, there's barely a story in that show, and the best attempt I have of explaining it is a bunch of high school boys pissing about having a laugh. But when they're not pissing together, there's actually really meaningful gems of soft-hearted moments that ground the show. These characters are people with problems and complexities hidden in their gags. There's something special about seeing our favorite characters just suddenly get serious and be real. This exact same thing happened in Skeet Dance and even Nichijou, and I'm sure if I go down my list of favorite gag comedy animes, I'll find similar moments. Hinamatsuri is no stranger to this. Beyond the nonsensical nature of the story and the comedy are moments of realness. These are tight-knit, heartwarming moments that really serve to not only progress the characters and develop them, but are also for us to really ruminate on beyond the laughs. And that's amazing. I think those kinds of moments are key to shows like this, and are just made so much more powerful in these kinds of shows since they're really a lot more sparse and used sparingly, but very effectively, and is what keeps me coming back at the end of the day. Sure, having great jokes and being really funny is the point of a wacky comedy like this. That's the main selling point. But for me, to really connect with these characters and with what's happening, and for even the jokes, there has to be some kind of ground, some kind of a level. And Hinamatsuri so far has really hit home with being both funny, but also heartwarming, and exploring very subtly some themes and having actual meaning and depth to it. Of course, with what I just mentioned, it might be a fine argument to just not watch the show and go for another heartwarming gag comedy that might have a premise you'd be more interested in if you for some reason don't like the whole idea of a Yakuza suddenly becoming a fodder, which I think is always a sound premise. Though I think Hinamatsuri sports a premise and concept as unique as it gets from that. This is the difference in kind that Hinamatsuri has. Whereas Skate Dance and Daily Lives and even Nichijou is almost locked to its high school-like setting, a show like Gintama or Mao-sama isn't. And Hinamatsuri is a show that belongs to that list, being set away from the norm, but also very much utilizing its setting of just being in this strange city. And it creates very strange scenarios for the characters and unexpected developments for those characters as well. It's also very elastic. Being in the city allows for just about anything to happen, which is great for a comedy anime. Along with this is being able to explore a lot more when you dive deep into what can actually be drawn from the city. For example, Anzu's story. When I experienced Anzu's story for a second time, it really is endearing, and it sets itself to be really contrasting to all of the other characters. And that is partly due to the fact that to have this homeless story like Anzu's, you have to be embracing your city setting, and you have to let the city setting breathe life into the characters. Along with, having the bar as this kind of central hub, you really need a more elastic setting, and Hinamatsuri really hammers that well. Though, at the same time, I'd also like to say that due to the setting and its wide cast of great characters, that a sort of wide net is also cast among which character you'll get. So you might not always have your favorite character taking the spotlight in a particular episode, or maybe some characters aren't going to be fleshed out or given much depth other than to be there for jokes, which is something to look out for. At least I found that to always expect to be following a story thread with someone like Hina or Anzu, no matter how interesting or endearing they got, isn't the way to go. It's better to just embrace whatever gag or situation they get into. It's for me both a good and bad thing. On the one hand, it makes sense to be following Hina, the main character, and Nita doing their thing, and to see their endearing parent-child comedy duo. But at the same time, there are a bunch of other great contrasting characters, so giving them attention and clashing them together makes for great situations. Though, oftentimes it is hard to remember who the real main character is when they're giving so much spotlight to other people. Really, there's not much I have to say about Hinamatsuri. It's a great comedic show that is chock full of great and strange characters, with a nice tad bit of heartwarming moments owing to its unique setting and premise. Among all of the other heavy-hitting shows that you might be watching, like Steins Gate Zero, which I know has been absolutely destroying me every episode, then a breath of fresh air like Hinamatsuri would be the perfect show to start watching. It's highly worth giving it a go and to let its wacky lighthearted comedy take its spell.